Welcome to Entertainment Weekly's Comic-Con studio. I'm Sam Heifel, and I'm joined now by the team behind His Dark Materials. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
I would love to start because we have now seen some images of these stunning angels, which I know it was, I believe, a bit of a process in deciding the look of those. How long was that process?
Probably about 5 years, I think.
Oh, good Lord.
So we've been thinking about it ever since we first started working on His Dark Materials. And then, as often happens in production, you suddenly find yourself doing it. And you're literally kind of like, oh, for God's sake, how has this happened? But it was a process. We took tips and hints from the angels that we designed for the Chittagazzi statues, the world that Will and Lara were in season 2. We hinted at the angels when Azrael summoned them to him at the end of season 2, and then we had to get down and dirty with them in season 3. And we found a look for them when they're on our world, sort of walking on the ground, and a look for them when they are in the kingdom of heaven and they're in their celestial form. But they are... yeah, they're tricky angels.
The mortals are quite tricky generally, I think. They're quite boring. They've got so much, very little to do on their time, and they don't wear much clothes. So it's always a bit tricky.
Yeah.
But you'll see right at the very beginning of season 1, there's a hint of them in the main titles. That's where it all started.
Yeah. I don't know how much of it was makeup versus CGI, but for the actors, what was it like to actually see these creatures on set?
I feel like even when they were in celestial form, we still got to work with the actor 99% of the time, right? So I think one of the things that the show does really good is even when we are employing all sorts of CGI, all sorts of tricks and flips and all that stuff, actually the thing at the heart of the show is the relationships and the connection and the performance and all that. And so that was... very true when working with the angels. I was actually just getting to work with an excellent actor.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Simon and Kobna, who play Baruch and Balthamos, they're on set and they just had contacts in. That was kind of the only thing that really made them look funny.
Yeah. Like blue contacts?
Yeah, they were blue contacts, weren't they? Yeah.
So it just was like a bunch of Daniel Craigs on
On
the set.
I mean, pretty much identical to that. You got it.
That's actually where you went for inspiration, was
Correct.
Daniel Craig.
And it was the Daniel Craig when he was coming out of the ocean in that particular Bond film.
Right,
there was
right,
no
right.
real need for it, but it just made me feel better on the day. You know what I mean?
Well, I know, James, I read a quote from you where you talked about kind of the importance of bringing your character kind of back to the book in a sense. What does kind of that mean, bringing it back to the book? What does that mean for you?
Look, there's a hell of a lot of stuff in the show. We had to make good on all the promise of season 1 and season 2 and show the stuff that Coulter and Azrael do. In the books, you don't really see it. You're told about it a little bit in hindsight, or hey, this other thing's happening over there in the Republic of Heaven with Azrael. It's alluded to and hinted at. So, but we had to show a hell of a lot more of it, and it was just about making sure that it was still true to who he is and his drives and his impulses and his objectives still bear the actions of what we end up choosing to sort of create, I guess, sometimes in season 3. And that was always an ongoing challenge, really, because it's you're inventing stuff, and when somebody as incredible as Philip Pullman is the author of this stuff, you're inventing stuff and you're going to be held up against his invention, right, and held up against his creation and his imagination and his penetration of themes and ideas, and that's a very high bar. And so that was something that we, I think, always felt collectively quite aware of, and I guess you felt the pressure of that at times, but it's also the thing that kicks you on to go into a different level.
Yeah. Well, specifically, the Amber Spyglass has never been adapted. How daunting was that for you all as producers?
Well, it's very daunting because you have so many challenges on so many different levels. One of the things you have to do with the Amber Spyglass is make sure that all of the questions, and there are many of them, that have been raised in season 1 and season 2 are answered. You have to make sure that it's going to deliver on the realm of scale and epic spectacle as we go through all these different worlds. And Azrael and Coulter are challenging, the highest authority. And then you have to, critically, you have to make sure that it's delivering emotionally. I think the Amber Spyglass is ultimately for all of its spectacular craziness, it's ultimately a piece about love, and you have to make sure it delivers on that. I call it the challenge of a lifetime, really, or our beloved challenge. I hope that you can feel how passionately everyone believed in delivering that final season to the screen.
Yeah. Well, speaking of love, beautiful segue. Obviously, Amber Spyglass has Will, Lyra. Are we going to get like some romantic feelings, inklings?
You're gonna have to watch and find out. There's a lot for people to look forward to. For me, it's Will and Lyra's friendship, and I've always had the approach that everyone can see that something's going on, and these guys don't really know it until something happens. If something happens, I guess you're gonna have to find out in season 3. It's not materials.
Yeah, always throw the if in there. That's how you save it. James, you have also talked about, like, this is a character you've played, but this is a very different, I feel like, version of Azrael from what I feel like I've heard. Do you feel like how does he differ from the one we know? Or does he? Am I wrong?
I don't think he does. I think we flirted at times with making him different to give us some journey in season 3. But then I think we just thought, season 1 and 2, he's hardly in it. We just want to deliver more on what he is. He is such a one-track kind of mind. He's on a train with one destination, and that destination is his goal to take down the authority. And sort of, I think from maybe midway through his life, that is his trajectory, and nothing will get in the way with it. Not the lives of children, not the lives of anyone. And I think his journey then becomes about being somebody who is so complete in his sense of who he is and what he stands for and what he will strive for. You shake all that with something as fundamental as fatherhood.
Yeah.
I think he's a very pure adaptation of Azrael in the book. In the distillation of his character, I think the only thing that is different is that we fill in some of the gaps with Philip Pullman's permission. We filled in some of the gaps when Azrael was off stage, and every now and again Pullman in his authorial narrating voice would refer briefly to what he was doing, and he encouraged us to pull those threads in to our adaptation.
Yeah.
It was a great sadness that in season 2 we didn't get to really fill in what happened in Chittaghatsi, and that was an amazing story that was formulated into something really, really interesting. And then pandemic came in, and we kept, it was the classic thing. We were all like, oh, we'll be back in 2 weeks, we'll be back in 4 weeks, we'll be back in 6 weeks, we'll be back without shooting this in 6 months.
Okay, one of my favorite questions to ask when it's the final season of a show, because I think it avoids spoilers, which is just for the writers, what are the kinds of endings that you like? And like, what kind of endings do you enjoy?
Oof, that's a tough one, because this one ends in a pretty heart-wrenching, emotional, but also incredibly profound way. These books, I read them when I was a teenager. Still watching, the show now, watching the end of the show now. I think they still move me as they did then, and I think that's the kind of most I could say about it, probably without any spoilers. But yeah, like a lifelong kind of passion for these books and what they say. And I don't think I'll ever do better in any other job that I ever work on ever again.
I like endings that say "to be continued."
I don't. I don't. Unless it's really good. I like endings that slap you around the face a little bit and maybe surprise you and then stop. That kind of ending?
The Sopranos?
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's not what you thought it was and now it's over.
Yeah.
Like that kind of ending I like.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I like endings that make you wonder what's happening after it finishes,
Okay.
and keeps you thinking.
We have 4 very different answers, so I am very intrigued to see how this one ends. Thank you guys for stopping through.
Thank you for
And
having us.
everybody else, stay tuned to EW.com.
Thanks for coming.
Bye, guys.